on your live chat. So what I do is broadly, I think it can be categorized under three probably categories. Like the first is I'm a researcher. The second is on the basis of the research that we do, I undertake advocacy. Now, advocacy is basically when you take an issue and you have some data on it, and you try to push for reforms, either at the level of, say, policy, or at the level of a particular health program, or some reforms maybe even within the community, using that evidence. And the third thing that I do is, I think, what is broadly classified as activism, which is slightly more adversarial in nature, a little bit more probably controversial as well. Now, I'm a freelance consultant, which means that I'm not, I work on a contract basis, so I'm not affiliated with one particular organization, and I've been working for 5 years, and I think I have worked with three or four organizations till now. And I think being a consultant, it's great. Because you have, your freedom. You can work on your own time. You can work on the side on different things. So yeah, anything that you want me to expand on?
Yeah, like in general, you said that you've been working with an emphasis on public health. So because most of the people watching this, just like me, would have no idea on actually what goes on inside rural settings and stuff like that. So if you could tell us a few of your experiences.
Okay, so I work on public health, which basically means that, public health is everything, okay? Usually people tend to equate health with just the medical aspect of things, and people think health is something that only happens in hospitals, but that's not what the case is. Everything in life, is connected to health. So your education status is also something that will determine your health status. Your employment is something that will determine your health status directly or indirectly. Now what goes on in public health, and that's quite a complicated thing. So as we know that, India is slightly poor compared to other countries in terms of our health indicators. Yeah, wait, can you just ask me the question again? Sorry, I'm a little bit lost.
Sure. In terms of public health, what you've been doing, are there any other, like a few things you can tell us that would immediately make us understand how big the problem is and why you chose to work in it?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. So one of the projects that I was working on was related to disrespect and abuse that women face during childbirth. Okay, so this is a big problem in especially public hospitals in all resource poor settings. It's not just a problem that's specific to India. It's across like the globe. And basically women, are not treated properly. There's a lot of violence, whether it's physical, whether it's verbal, whether it's in terms of attitudes, that persists. So what we were trying to do is, there's very little evidence on this problem. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence. A lot of people know that it happens, but there's nothing systematically recorded on this. So we undertook a research study in district hospitals in Punjab. In one particular district hospital, so we were covering, the hospital structures is basically, so there's a sub-center at the village, at the level of a few villages, where you get certain, services like maternity care, antenatal services. So basically, a pregnant woman will go there to to get herself checked out, make sure everything is fine. Then you have like a higher center, and then you have the hospitals. So we were doing this study where I was observing childbirth. So we had to record, factual narratives of what is going on during childbirth. So some of the things that we saw were, discriminatory attitudes, women who come from poorer backgrounds, women who don't speak the local language very clearly, they are discriminated against. There were also some very horrible things that were said to women about, And this is, I mean, it's funny, like I've done this research across India. I've done this in about 4 or 5 states now. And, so we often hear this dialogue which medical professionals say to women where they say कि जब आप कर रहे थे तब तो आपको बड़ा मजा आ रहा होगा तो अब क्यों चिल्ला रहे हो, which is basically when you were having sex you must have been really enjoying it, so why are you screaming now? And I think, I mean, this issue has a lot to do with medical training. It has a lot to do with our own attitudes, our own cultural and social attitudes. So we documented the entire problem, one on the basis of observations. Then we also interviewed women, we interviewed their family members, we interviewed nurses, doctors, people who head these institutions to try and understand the problem from all the dimensions. Then we put it all together in a study. We had, a good amount of relationship with the Ministry of Health and the Maternal Commissioner. And the organization that was funding us does a lot of advocacy work. So they had been raising this issue in various ways. They made a movie, NDTV shot that movie. I was in that movie. They also, they had done this event.
Yes.
Huh?
In case people want to check it out, what was it called?
It's called Respectful Maternity Care. Just put Respectful Maternity Care, NDTV, and I think you'll be able to find it. So then what we did is, because we had good networks, and so I was telling you about the organization. So they had also done this event where they invited the Health Minister of India, and they had women from all corners of the country come and present the problem to the minister themselves. And, there was a lot of media reporting. So basically making a little bit of noise, getting some momentum around the issue. And then we presented our research findings, and we were able to, work with the ministry on formulating a policy for effecting change. Like, so some of the things that the policy said is that, one, there have to be posters in the hospital explaining women's rights to them, explaining that being treated with respect is your right, receiving information on your status during childbirth is a right, privacy is a right, confidentiality is a right, being spoken to respectfully, not being slapped, not being pinched is a right. And these seem like very matter of fact things. Yeah, but I mean, it's hard also to assert these things, right? So it's good. I mean, if you have, if you have this, what do you call it? Presented, whatever.
On the wall.
On the walls, yeah. So we worked on getting this policy through. Then we also did trainings with nurses, with doctors, to change their attitudes, to change behaviors, which is very difficult because often people who are the oppressors, they tend to get very defensive and they don't want to accept that this happens. And that was a challenge, but we were able to find some doctors, some sensitive doctors and nurses who were, open to talking about this issue and who were open to speaking among their own, fellow professionals to change this. So we did these trainings, and then we were also working with the government on monitoring how, this policy is being implemented in different hospitals. So there was a big research study that the Indian Council of Medical Research undertook in different hospitals. So we helped them figure out their protocols. So when you do research, you use a tool. So it could be an interview guide, or it's those typical survey things, ki wo yes, no mark karne wala. Figuring out what should be asked, what should be measured, how it should be measured. And then there's a hospital in Aurangabad. It's a medical college. And the guy who heads the gynae department is somebody who's very sensitive to these issues. So we were working with that hospital. So what my role there was to go in and first do what is called a baseline survey. Basically, at the beginning, so the plan was to do an intervention in the hospital in the form of trainings, etc., etc. So first we had to establish what is the baseline, like what is the situation and the condition in that hospital. So I went in there, spent a few days, interviewed people, again observed childbirth, and then interviewed service providers, put all this together, presented it to the organization, and on the basis of this, the organization was able to develop training programs, an intervention program because they were able to identify ki, okay, like this is the problem, this is what needs to be addressed. And they were able to understand the context. And then I went in again to see, to do an end line. Ki after a year of the intervention happening, what is the situation now? Has it changed? Has it not changed? And then the same thing. So that I think is broadly how, and again, this is a very, very specific aspect of public health. So this is maternal health. In maternal health, this is quality of care. In quality of care, this is behavior.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because you said that at the end you do an end line, are there times when you think that what you're doing is super thankless, or do you see results and does that sort of fill you up a little inside and give you strength to move on?
See, it's always very difficult to get results. Now, when the policy came out and we had contributed extensively to the entire process, that felt like a big win because there's a policy now. But then, implementation of the policy is a whole different ballgame. And then we realized that implementation is not really happening the way it should everywhere. So then, I think there are ups and downs, there are wins and then there are losses. But I think what's important is, so like you said in the beginning, the degree that I did is social work, right? And social work is something which is, sometimes criticized a little bit because, you're not challenging the status quo. You're just using the existing mechanism ki matlab aapko खाना मिलना चाहिए, तो I will not try and change the system जिसके through आपको खाना मिलना चाहिए, because there may be problems there, but I will just work within that system to get you that food, right? And research, the aim of research is largely to effect changes. So sometimes it can be a little bit, contradictory, but I think it's important to do both, because I feel like if you're just going after systemic change, if you're just looking to effect large level changes and change is very slow, then you will get very disillusioned. And so it's important sometimes to do these little bits of social work to keep yourself going and to feel that what you're doing is having some change. So to give you an example, now there's this entire COVID situation, right? I'm sure a lot of people would know that our hospitals are not entirely prepared. So the work, so I've been working with this alliance. I'm a member of this health network called the Jan Swasthya Abhiyan, which is the India chapter of the People's Health Movement. Which is basically a group of rights-based, people working to change things and to bring about a more rights-based system. So on one hand, we have been documenting what is happening. So like non-COVID patients who have chronic illnesses are not getting treatment because our hospitals are now completely geared towards COVID. Yeah. So cancer patients, dialysis patients, pregnant women are having a really hard time. So we've been documenting some of these concerns and bringing that to the notice of the authorities through, writing letters, working with individual journalists to publish stories, because that's something that really gets government attention, raising these issues on social media. But at the same time, we have also been assisting pregnant women, cancer patients, dialysis patients who are reaching out to us saying कि हम hospital गए थे और हमें भगा दिया, या फिर हम hospital गए थे और हमसे इतने पैसे मांग रहे थे. We also have a group of doctors. So if you don't need to really go to a hospital and all you need is a consult, so then we'll connect you to a doctor who will be able to give you whatever advice, or we will connect you to a doctor in a hospital who will be able to make sure that you get treatment. And I think doing one without the other would be very difficult. There are days when I'm just handling cases, and at the end of the day, you're just on the phone. And even, ensuring that one person gets treatment takes a lot of calls. It takes a lot of energy. And there are days where at the end of the day, I think, what have I done? And those days I feel like, nahi, hame, advocacy system level pe change karna chahiye. And then there are some days where I'm just speaking to journalists, or I'm just sitting and, tweeting. And at the end of the day, I feel like, what did I do today? And I think, it feels, I think it feels very, motivating to be able to help even one person or two people or three people. And I think that really pushes you to do more. So I think both are important.
So I think anyone who would listen to this gets an idea of what kind of person you are. Like, what motivates you is what I mean. ये नहीं कि आप तो भगवान हो,
Right.
कि so what I want to know is that how did you end up at law school? One. Second, did you think that was a longer path you took than required? Because I'm like most people get this कि अगर आपने आर्ट्स लेनी ही लेनी है तो उसमें सबसे ज्यादा प्रेस्टिजियस कैरियर लॉयर होता है. तो मम्मी पापा को मनाने के लिए वो सबसे इजी होता है कि मैं आर्ट्स ले रहा हूँ या ले रही हूँ क्योंकि लॉ तो कर ही सकता हूँ. लाइक हाँ. सो वाज दैट इट फॉर यू एंड डू यू रिग्रेट taking the long route?
Okay, so I'll answer your first question first. How did I get to law school? Okay, honestly, I got to law school because in some ways that's what my parents wanted me to do. So I remember when I was in school, I wanted to study psychology. My mother's a doctor. My mother comes from a family of doctors. And I mean, much to her sadness, I left biology after 10th. I left the whole science wala field, and my mother initially wanted me to be a doctor or a dentist like her. Although now when they see all this COVID happening, they're very happy कि अच्छा तुम doctor नहीं बने.
Safe है.
Stay away, you know. So I took commerce, and then after that, I wanted to study psychology, but my parents took me to this career counselor, not counseling, but one of those places, you know, they make you fill those forms and they make you tick things and then they tell you what you're good at. And law came out as one of the things which I should, which they said I should be doing. Now, you know, at the time, see, I'm not somebody who always has a plan, okay, in life. I proceed more on the whole fund of what not to do, and I know what I don't want to do as opposed to what I want to do. And I knew that you know, I mean, I did not want to get into this science maths thing. So so law seemed like a good option at the moment. I think, you know, when we're in school, we also don't know a lot about what's out there in the world. I mean, I only knew these 2-3 careers, ki doctor ban jao, engineer ban jao. Law was also something which my parents were initially against because when they were growing up, law was something जो बिल्कुल वो लुखे लोग करते हैं, you know. It was not a very sought after profession. But then PLAT was happening, these national law schools were there, and you know, we were hearing that अच्छे पैकेज मिलते हैं लॉ स्कूल खत्म करने के बाद without really knowing, you know, कि what the work actually involves. So I think I ended up at law school pretty much by chance, as opposed to a very calculated, conscious decision. Yeah. Then you were
तो सेकंड पार्ट ये था कि तुझे ऐसा तो नहीं लगता कि मैंने 5 साल वेस्ट क्यों किए, मैं सीधा यही करती जो मेरे को पसंद.
So do I feel like I wasted time at law school? No, I don't think so. I mean, I think law school showed me again very clearly what I did not want to do. I remember I did litigation internships. I did one internship at this corporate law firm, Trilegal. And I remember I used to hang out with you at that time a lot. You know, परेशान होके मैं 6-7 बजे भाग जाती थी. मतलब everybody used to be there till 11 o'clock, you know, very competitively working. So I think law school showed me what I didn't want to do. Now, while I was in law school, I was part of the legal aid committee, and we used to, you know, there was this one prisons project which CHRI, Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, had done, and I think that was when I was in the 3rd year, and that's the first time where I felt like, oh, like this is something you know, that I would probably enjoy doing, because we were going to the Jodhpur Central Jail, we were interviewing people, and I think I've always sort of had that interest in people's lives. You know, I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy getting to know people's stories. You know, I am a people's person. So I mean, that was the first time where I felt कि अच्छा, मतलब ये litigation and corporate law के अलावा भी दुनिया में कुछ चीजें होती हैं, कुछ है. And then we used to do legal aid camps, which was a lot of fun. And I think that's where I started, you know, thinking about a career in, again, I didn't know key research, like formally that there's something called research also, but I thought that this whole social work field is something that I could get into. Then when I was in the fourth year, I went to, or fifth year, I don't know, I went to the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, which is, a movement of farmers in Rajasthan, headed by Aruna Roy.
MKSS, right?
MKSS, yeah, the people who brought in RTI, Narega. And that was the first time where I think I actually stepped out of my comfort zone. I had gone all by myself. It was a completely unfamiliar territory. We were staying in this place, which had like these mud huts. It was, I mean, it was really eye-opening. It was the first time I actually lived in a village. The first time I actually, knew and saw what village politics are. I mean, this one morning we woke up and there was a huge uproar in the village because so there were two hand pumps. एक hand pump दूर था और एक hand pump पास था और एक तीसरा hand pump एक upper caste बंदे के घर के अंदर था जो किसी को allowed नहीं था use करना. And we woke up in the morning and the close वाला hand pump had been covered in literally human shit. Because that upper caste guy had some bone to pick with others in the village. And then there was this huge sabha that had happened. And, that's the first time I realized, acha, matlab, like what caste politics is, how it works, how some of these things that we read in books, how they operate. And then how do you operate in a situation like this? And somebody from MKSS was actually, involved in trying to mediate the entire situation. So when I went there, I met other people who had come. There were a lot of DU kids, and I think they generally have a better understanding of this whole civil society, social sciences space. And that's when I started, exploring more such options. Although, like I remember at the time, one of my friends who had also helped me get the internship in Trilegal was quite appalled कि तुम क्या ये social service करना चाहते हो. And there wasn't a lot of guidance in college as well. I remember there was just one professor, Shastri, and I went to him and I said, this is the kind of stuff that I want to do. And he scratched his head and he said, बहुत साल पहले there was this one woman who had done something like this, and maybe I can get you her contact. And that's pretty much it. But I mean, at the same time, in a place like this, you'll get a lot of guidance for mujhe corporate law karna hai. So then I started exploring. I did an internship with the National Human Rights Commission, where I met people from TIS, and that's where the first time I got to know ki TIS hota kya hai, the diversity of degrees that one can pursue, the diversity of careers that one can pursue. And so I decided to make the jump after law school, from a career in law to a career here. I think there are skills that you pick up in law school which are definitely useful in a career like this. I mean, one, I think the research and the writing bit. Second, I think, critical thinking, although NLU Jodhpur में बहुत ज़्यादा critical thinking सिखाते नहीं थे, at least classroom में तो नहीं सिखाते थे. So I think these skills, and again, I mean, the lawyer tag really matters, right? It's unfortunately in our society, we still have that hierarchy of careers. कि तुम doctor हो तो तुम भगवान हो, तुम engineer हो तो तुम wow so smart हो, and lawyer is also something that has that value and that sort of respect attached to it, and I think sometimes all of that does come into use. I don't regret it. I don't think so. I mean, I think what law does is it gives you the flexibility. Even though our law schools don't really teach you that and they don't really tell you that, but I think a degree in law is actually very, very flexible. I mean, you can become a journalist after law. You can you can do what you can get into academics. You can there's so much that you can do after law, particularly in the social sciences field.
But like a lot of people have ऐसे timer चलता रहता है ना कि 12वीं के बाद 2 महीने के अंदर लॉ स्कूल ज्वाइन कर लिया, लॉ स्कूल खत्म किया, 2 हफ्ते के अंदर पहली जॉब कर ली. You never had that. Like you don't think like that has much value, right?
See, I think it depends, Salil. I mean, I think some people have the privilege of not having that timer, and some people don't have the privilege of having that, of not having the timer. So for me, I do come from a place of great socioeconomic privilege. And I think for that reason, it's not like I had to graduate from law school and get a job to support my parents or to support a family immediately. So I was fairly
Absolutely.
more flexible in that sense. But but there are also a lot of people who have the privilege of not having that timer but still have that timer. I didn't have that. And I think sometimes in law school, it really bothered me that I don't have that, especially by the time we got to our fourth year, because, by the fourth year, everybody had 2 internships, एक को PPO मिल रहा है, everybody knew मुझे इस वकील को join करना है, इस firm को join करना है, इसको join करने के लिए इससे दोस्ती करनी है, ये करना है, वो करना है. And I think, and I mean, a lot of my friends also knew, a lot of my close friends knew what to do. And I didn't know till very late what I wanted, and I think that had a lot of impacts on my own mental health. Again, something I was not very aware of in law school. But I remember, like, I think my fourth year, I was really depressed. Like, I couldn't sleep at night. I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, doubt in my own self-confidence. Because I felt like, like by not joining the rat race, maybe that's because I'm not capable, or maybe because I'm not, smart enough. But I think, because I didn't want to be part of that rat race, I managed to stay out of it. And I also believe that, things work out when they have to work out. And honestly, I think in my life, a large part of my life has been that things just do sort of happen. I don't know, maybe subconsciously you're working towards them. And so I was lucky enough to go to NHRC to meet other people, to meet like-minded people, and find TIS and get into TIS. And again, I had the privilege of not having to immediately get a job, so I could explore. And although I think my parents didn't exactly understand, but I will give them a lot of credit because they were very, very supportive. Like, I remember I think I was in my 5th year and I was interning in Delhi for something. And I had this eureka moment कि मैं तो TIS जा रही हूँ. And I told my parents कि I'm going to TIS and I'm going to do a degree in social work. And this is what I'm doing. And my parents are like, acha. And then a few days later, I got a call from my mother saying, do you remember Falani auntie, unka beta tha, wo na US mein engineer ban gaya hai, to, and he's doing really well. So if you want, hum rishta set up kar dete hain, tum apna charity wahin pe kar lena. So it was very, very well-meaning, but I think my parents thought, "Acha, social work, matlab our daughter is telling us she's not serious in life." But again, they were very supportive, and I said no to that rishta, obviously. And then I think my parents read up about TIS, and TIS does have a standing, and parents really love that stuff. So then they felt कि अच्छा maybe शायद कुछ हो सकता है.
My next question is actually about TIS, because I teach a lot of students and interact with a lot of students who want to get in the social sciences. और आजकल के लोगों को मतलब बच्चों को पता होता है यार, हमको तो मालूम ही नहीं होता था TIS क्या है. 11th-12th में तो कोई आइडिया नहीं था कि कुछ कर भी सकते हो सोशल साइंसेज में. So if you could just outline your experience, what it's like going to a premier social sciences institution, and how academically challenging was that, and what's the kind of ecosystem at that place?
So, I mean, if you remember, NLU Jodhpur was not the most academically rigorous. I think a lot of us really got by on copy-paste. I think maybe 80% of people were doing copy-paste. And, TIS, the pedagogy is slightly different. I mean, I remember in our first year, we had 2 days of fieldwork, compulsory fieldwork. So 2 days, and everybody had an organization and stuff assigned. And in our exams, we used to get questions like, so for example, explain this theory, but apply it to the field setting. So, I mean, ratte se kaam nahi chalta, copy paste se kaam nahi chalta. So it's something that, that challenged you to really think. I studied again. NECTIS also depends, like all Indian government, quasi-government institutions. It depends from center to center. The faculty really matters. So the center that I was in was fantastic. I mean, I had really good faculty members who were teaching, people who were very active in their field. Some very academically also established. And so we had good faculty who were doing more than just teaching. I mean, they also had other things going on the side, and I think they brought that experience into their teaching. And at the same time, it also gave you a glimpse of what you can do after you graduate, right? So initially, I found this to be a little bit intimidating because I thought, oh, मतलब ऐसे तो law school में हमें सिखाया ही नहीं कि ऐसे कैसे काम करना है. But then, again, I mean, there was a lot of empathy, and I think that was a big difference between our NLU teachers. Sorry, I'm going off into one like NLU rant, but the teachers at this, they came with a lot of empathy, and they were very supportive, and our classrooms were smaller. I mean, we were just 15, 16 people in one class, whereas in NLU, we were 50 people in one
40?
class. 40 people.
जैसे स्कूल में होता है सेक्शन होते थे यार, बीबीए वाले, बीए वालों के 2 सेक्शन, एक बीएससी वाले जो 12 या 13 ही होते थे.
So, and also, I mean, in TIS, a lot of our classmates were people who came with some professional background, like people who either came with some work experience. The overall makeup of the students was very, very diverse. I mean, so we had students who came from very upper class backgrounds, but we also had, like, one of my classmates, one of my batchmates. I mean, she was, I think, the first person in her family to get a college degree, and both of us had gone to Sweden for an exchange program, and I mean, I think I learned so much from there was so much that I learned from that very experience, because I mean, so she was telling me how she used to take care of elderly people at night when she was doing her graduation, so that she could afford her graduation. And she said that also cut out the need for me to get my own place, because रात को सोने के लिए जगह चाहिए होती है, तो वो मैं लोगों के घर में सो जाती थी. And
बाकी टाइम यूनिवर्सिटी.
And I mean, that struggle was something that I had only read about. That struggle is something that was so alien to me. So I think there was a lot of learning outside the classroom that used to happen, a lot of learning in interactions. And I think there was, and I think, like, something that's not emphasized enough in our higher education is the unlearning, which I think I really got at TIS, where we live in these little bubbles, we live in these little cocoons, and we think yehi duniya hai, we don't really interact much with the outside world. And I think TIS really taught me that. I mean, just this, this friend of mine, that was something that was very eye-opening. So I think, this difference in background, not just socioeconomic, but also educational backgrounds. I mean, we had people who had history, literature, medical, engineer, like all these sorts of different backgrounds. Everybody had their own struggles and stories, after which they had landed up in TIS. So I think these things also really sort of fed into the entire TIS experience. I mean, yeah. So, and I think what I loved about this is the exposure. So one, we had this, the first year we had the field work, and then in the second year we had this compulsory block placement level, which is basically that for a month entirely we had to be out, and people chose different things. Some people chose to go to an NGO, some people chose to go to a movement, and I went to this place called Badwani in Madhya Pradesh, which is one of the most resource poor districts. It's a border district between Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra. Narmada Bachao Andolan is entirely based in Badwani. That's the headquarters.
Okay.
So, but wahan pe there's another movement called the Jagrit Adivasi Dalit Sangathan, which is basically a collective of the local tribal people there, and they've done a lot of work on improving health facilities and bringing health as a political issue. So I had gone there for a month, and I mean, it was really fun because it was such a beautiful place. You know, we don't get to go to these places in India because they're not accessible to tourists. So, I mean, there was a lot of life life skills that I learned in Barwani. And at the same time, I learned how people collectivize, how community resources can be leveraged and used for bringing about change. And I think otherwise, sometimes, what happens in research is it's the elite educated people who end up dominating, and we come with zero lived experience of things that we are often trying to change, right? And I think a lot of people get stuck in that, and there is a lot of critique in the academic and the research field also. The whole bottom-up model, I don't agree with that term necessarily, but the fact that we need to look at communities in a less patronizing manner, and we need to understand that we may be very educated and we may have a lot of degrees, but there is still stuff that we don't know, and that there is still stuff that we
intuitively will never understand. Right?
Yeah, and that there is so much that we can learn. I mean, we think we know everything because we have these degrees, but that's really not it. And I think that is something that I will carry with me my entire life, that, you are constantly learning. I understand that, I can do whatever, but an expert is something that I don't want to be, which I think a lot of people strive towards, because the minute you're an expert, your learning curve just, ends.
Yeah. Because you start believing you're an expert to begin with.
Yeah. So I think it was these aspects of TISS that I really enjoyed. These are also relationships that I've ended up cultivating and continuing with. One of the things that the Sangathan was very clear on is, like movements and NGOs, they get a lot of crowd like us. I mean, a lot of upper class university students who will go to, organizations to work. But essentially, we don't end up contributing anything to them. It's these people who end up spending a lot of their resources, a lot of their time that they could spend on other things. So I think one of the things that the Sangathan was clear on is that don't think that your privilege gives you a license to just, come here and be, but you also have to contribute. And so some of the things that we did, so people like us, what we have is access to information. What we have is access to, to knowledge. Some of the things that I did there was, hold conversations or discussions on different kind of healthcare models that exist in the world. So in India we're moving towards privatization. Private hospital सबसे अच्छा है, सब कुछ privatize कर दो, सरकारी hospital तो काम नहीं करते हैं, तो उनको तो defund करो. And that's essentially what's happening in our country. And so one of the things that I was doing at the Sangathan was, talking to people about what the model is like in Sweden, what a privatized model in a place like the US has done to the health system. So sharing, my resources with the Sangathan. Yeah.
Okay. So you've already spoken about how when you started off, especially with your first few internships and all, it was like hardcore fieldwork stuff. Like that's what, and even now while you are doing research, it is fieldwork because you're still going to a Sarkari Aspatal, still giving the workshop and stuff like that. So at what point, because this also, we have forgotten about that, but it is also a career and thoda financial aspect to this podcast, and that's what I want to bring up now. To study in TISS, number one, are there scholarships and stuff like that? Because I know that it's not all the schools are very affordable. Are there scholarships that are provided? How do people use those? And second, what are the opportunities? Like, how do they branch out into research or into pure field work and stuff like that?
So, they used to have that GOI fellowship, but from what I get to know now, students are really struggling. I know of students who were earlier on the scholarship, but now because the scholarship has been cancelled, TISS has asked them. Suddenly you come to your 4th semester and the institute tells you कि नहीं आपको 4 semester की fees अब भरनी पड़ेगी. So I know a lot of students who are, trying to figure out money. So unfortunately, the scope of scholarships has greatly reduced, and the fees is increasing. It is going up, which is why we need to be out on the streets protesting for government-funded socialized
Public
education.
education.
Yes. So, I mean, I think it's not as accessible a place as it used to be. Regarding jobs, so now there's a lot of CSR stuff that comes in. I remember when we had placements, and again, I didn't sit for placements in TIS, I didn't sit for placements in NLU. A lot of it was, CSR, a lot of NGOs, organizations come, and the pay scales vary greatly. So, there were organizations that were coming that were offering like 20, 25 grand. But then there was one organization, I won't go into the background of the organization, but they were offering like a lakh ka starting package. It also depends on the school. So HR ka jo school hai, wahan pe, the packages are obviously much, much higher. In
वो
social
लोग
work,
कॉर्पोरेट में ही जाते हैं सीधा.
हाँ, HR में बहुत लोग. Then it depends, are you working with an international organization? So if you work with a WHO or a UNICEF or any UN body or, or say these international Bill and Melinda Gates kind of organizations, then you get paid much more. If you work with, say, smaller community-based organizations, your pay scales will be much less. So it really varies and depends on the organization, but definitely I think it's not the case कि अगर आप social work करोगे तो you will be destitute your entire life. I mean, you can really choose. There are also different paths that people go on. I mean, you can choose to do a PhD, and especially if you do a PhD in, say, a foreign university with funding, then you can continue to work in India. You work independently. You don't have a boss, an organization, and the organizational politics on your head, and you can work way more independently. There are also fellowships that are given out by organizations, which you can take on, and all of them have their different requirements. So there is a lot of variety now, but the only thing is you really have to network a lot. You have to, and I don't know, maybe that's something that exists in all careers, but you won't typically find a lot of opportunities advertised online anywhere on the internet. So a lot of it also happens on word of mouth. Then I think as you get more experience, you can also work on writing projects, raising funding on your own, applying for projects. And again, this is work that happens collaboratively. Change is not something that you can bring about just on your own. So it helps if you cultivate and nurture, people who you are comfortable and enjoy working with. So there are various avenues, and I think once you work with an organization, and usually things happen on project basis, right? So an organization will write a project, or 3 saal project chalega. But even though, at the end of the 3 years, that project might end, but the organization will also, for its own survival, write another project. And so you can always keep, opportunities hai, bahut opportunities hai.
Okay, the last question that I had for you today is, like, if there's any young women watching this who want to go into social work, who want to put themselves out there, go to rural areas and work there with organizations, number one, were the organizations able to create an environment around you where you always felt safe? And if the answer is a hard no, then what are some of the challenges you faced, and how can people, just so that they can be prepared for what's coming up ahead?
Okay, see, again, I think, this is, something, I think this is something that upper class people create in their minds, ki rural area bahut unsafe hai. Our city is really safe, So I think it's a little bit unfair to say कि rural area में जाने के लिए safe है क्या? मतलब तुम शहरों में रहते हो तो, but we do
obviously हाँ ज़्यादा है.
Yeah. Now, usually, every time when I've gone for fieldwork, I will usually contact an organization, try to find somebody within my network, try to find a structure that I can bank on and depend on. I felt unsafe once when I was in Madhya Pradesh only, but that was because of this guy from Chennai, postgraduate student who was just really, really creepy.
Okay.
And yeah,
It was a co-worker.
yeah, I mean, he had also come there for field work, and I mean that's one bad experience that I had where he was trying to get a little bit handsy. But I think I got a lot of support from the organization, from the individuals who were in the organization to confront him, and I mean, effectively, like, give him a strong warning that things like this are not appreciated and will not be entertained. Apart from that, of course, I mean, if you're traveling alone, and I have mostly undertaken all the travel alone, I don't know, sometimes maybe that's a little bit foolhardy. But you do have to be very careful. It unfortunately does matter, how you present yourself. You have to, I think, really rely on your instinct. You have to, that voice inside you that sort of tells you, okay, what is this person like? What are they not like? But I mean, I have never, like, often when I walk around in Delhi, like from my house, when I go to the market, I feel very unsafe because I feel like koi ghur raha hai, koi kuch kar raha hai. But I've never felt that way in a village. I think probably also because population density kam hai, so log often kam hote hain. They're also more close-knit communities. So no, I wouldn't say that villages are somehow less safe.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, but you do have. It's good to stay connected. Internet is often a problem in these places. So it's good to have a charged phone so that you can reach out for help. It's good to make sure that somebody knows where you're going, somebody's informed, and that you have somebody at the other end who will be responsible for you. I remember this one experience that I had in Rajasthan, in this place called Potra, which is called the Kala Pani of Rajasthan. Again, it's a tribal area. It's a very remote area. There's only, I think...
Is that where we did the nuclear? That's Pokhran.
No. This is a hilly area. And I mean, after 5 o'clock, there are no buses that go in or go out. And I remember this one, I mean, that night, I was pretty scared that night. Again, I had gone alone. I had just got in touch with this one person from the organization who had arranged my transportation to get there. And I was staying with this woman who did not understand a word of what I spoke, and I understood very little of what she spoke. And I was told, ki, theek hai, like, inke ghar mein raho. And I didn't know that she sells alcohol, at night. I didn't know it doubles up as a theka. So it was 5 o'clock and I was chilling, and you know what I mean, in like tribal houses, you don't have doors and you sleep outside the house. Mostly you don't really sleep inside. And I mean, 5 o'clock came and suddenly this little trailer kind of a thing rolled up, and they started unloading alcohol, and I realized कि अच्छा ये क्या हो रहा है. And then it was late at night, and I had fallen asleep out of exhaustion, and there were a few men who were sitting a little bit apart and they were drinking, and I was pretty scared because I was an outsider. It was very apparent that I was an outsider, and they came and asked her also, Miri Bai, they asked her, who is she? And I could understand that they're talking about me, and I was a little bit scared. And at night I fell asleep, and I made Miri Bai sleep right next to me. And at night I woke up to this torch flashing in my face, and this guy was standing, I said, wo hil raha tha, and he was going, Miri Bai, daru. And I remember nudging Miri Bai away, ki Miri Bai, daru de do, like just give it to him. And then those guys got into a fight and they started beating up each other, and unki gaadi khadi thi. And that movie, वो अनुष्का शर्मा की क्या movie है जिसमें वो गाड़ी लेके भागती है रात को, highway, no, NH10, and all of that was playing in my head, and I was thinking, okay, like if one guy kills another guy, then I'm the only outsider, so they'll probably want to kill me as well.
Automatically,
yeah. So I think, it was paranoia, but it was really fine, nothing happened. Miri Bai knew these people. Miri Bai was really, really chilled out. I figured that she can handle what's happening.
People in the comments are typing NH10.
Correct. That was NH10. So I think that was, but I was really, really scared that night and I realized that maybe sometimes I should plan a little bit more. Also, my phone had died. Nobody knew where the hell I was. So I think sometimes, I mean, it's good to keep someone informed of where you are.
And yeah, that's something you learn. नहीं तो पहले तो it's like अरे मैं ही तो हूँ, मैं ही तो करूँगा करूँगी.
देख लेंगे सब. But I mean, on the whole, I've met very good people. I have gone to places. I mean, like there was this one place called Bokrata in Madhya Pradesh where the bus goes till a point and then you just have to walk. I mean, it's like a 3-hour walk up a mountain and there's really nothing on top. But I've met some very good people who have, I mean, really taken care of me, gone out of the way. And I think it's just that gut instinct that you really have to rely on. But I mean, it helps if you go with another person. I mean, don't always go alone.
Okay, so we always end this by number one. If anyone who is watching this now or will in the future have any questions about how they can go about it, and if you sort of were a little inspired by what Nayat had to say and want to try to get into such fields yourself, we never ask the guests permission, Inayat, but we always broadcast कि अगर तुम्हें कोई भी मदद चाहिए तो इनायत को इंस्टाग्राम पे फॉलो करना, रीच आउट कर लेना. अगर इनायत रिप्लाई नहीं कर रही है क्योंकि वो बिजी है तो मेरे को रीच आउट कर लेना. मैं उसको क्वेश्चन भेजूंगा, वो मुझे आंसर भेजेगी, मैं तुमको भेजूंगा, पर हम रीच आउट कर लेंगे. So we are almost out of time. Inayat, at the very end, just if you could boil down for people who may have just joined like 5 or 10 minutes ago, what are the things that they should keep in mind if they are considering a career in social work or in research or in field work? Yeah.
Okay, some of the things that they should keep in mind. One, I think your own values, because when you work, when you work in research and when you're working to effect change, what is the kind of change that you want to see really matters. And I mean, sometimes, I mean, although everybody, who you meet in this field will tell you, they are working towards something good, but there are differences that can arise with people. So I think you have to be very clear on what your expectations are from. So I think one, that. Second, broadly, the issues that you want to work on, the field that you want to work on really matters. You should speak to people. You should get to know more. You should try to explore the landscape in terms of what are, some of the organizations, who are the individuals. You should read up on the issues that you want to work on. And I think you have to be prepared for a little bit of uncertainty at times. I mean, especially like I work as a consultant, I don't always have a job. And that is an unfortunate reality of our field, that, a lot of people just work on project basis. So I think you have to be good with money. You have to save, you have to be prudent. And
Are you good at with money?
Yeah, I save.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, you have to plan, and I think, I think those are some of the things that you should know why you want to do what you want to do. I mean, and it doesn't always have to be like some great grand answer, but I mean, I think with
just
any career,
a general feeling works sometimes, right?
Yeah, and I mean, why do you want to do it? Like, what do you want in life? Do you want money? Do you want fame? I don't know. Do you want what is your motivation for getting into this? Because it's not always easy. You get disillusioned a lot. Sometimes you get disillusioned with the people that you're working with, and that really sucks. So yeah, and I think I know, I can see
posting some nice comments about you. Inayat ma'am is very dynamic worker. Yeah. I agree. Clarity of thought has always been one of your strong points, man.
I don't think so. I think I tend to ramble a lot. I hope I wasn't rambling here.
I think it's just that you give great advice, because the people who are like so messed up inside, all the things that they think they need to tell themselves, they sort of lay it on the rest of the people, and people are like, whoa.
Whoa,
like,
yeah, that's
maybe that's what it is.
Can preach, not always practice. Yeah, but I think one of the things last thing that's important is solidarity. I mean, what is called in the cold corporate world as networking, unfortunately, that is an important reality. But I think if you only network for the sake of network and getting ahead, then that kind of sucks. And I think it's important that you're willing to work with people. Sometimes you may not do it for money, but it's important to do things that are important to be done. And I think that goes a long way in this field, the goodwill and the professional credibility that you gather.
Okay, guys, lots of wisdom being dropped tonight by Miss Inayat Singh Kakkar. Thanks, Inayat, for doing this.
Thank you.
I'm sure a lot of people will be very, very thankful even after this is published, like goes on the internet and stuff. So get ready to get lots of questions very soon.
Please reach
अगर
out.
और कोई नहीं भेजेगा मैं ही भेजता रहूंगा ताकि
हाँ भेजिएगा और मैं रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं करती हूँ तो प्लीज बैजर करना बिकॉज आई टेंड टू बी लिटिल बिट बैड एट responding and I often get overwhelmed when I
Sure.
have 100 messages.
कोई नहीं मैं परेशान करूंगा. See you. Patch you out now. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
If you enjoyed that conversation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back right here on this channel next Saturday at 6 p.m.
एक बात बताएं कि आपकी औकात क्या है, यानी कि आप हैं क्या चीज.